Hi everybody, my name is Mary and I'm from Ball State University. Today I'm going to be talking to you about some of the basic things with archaeology. Some of those things include the type of clothes we wear, the type of gear we carry, and the reasons why we do those things. So to start, share my PowerPoint with you guys. Here we go. So the George Rogers Clark Park Virtual Archaeology Camp, that's what you guys are watching here with me. So before we get started, you guys should have received a word search and a crossword puzzle in your packets before reviewing these videos. So I'm going to go over the answers to those things to just kind of clarify those. So the word search is kind of self-explanatory. You got all the words across, diagonally, and up and down. This was a challenging word search, so I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't get all the words. But if you did, great job. I actually struggled with this one a little bit too. So those are the answers to this. You can pause the video if you need to, if you want to look over it, or if you want to just compare your answers. But now I'll move on to the crossword puzzle. So the crossword puzzle was also a little difficult. I'll start from the very beginning and go all the way through every word and every definition. So what archaeologists dig through to find artifacts? Well, this could have been a variety of answers like sand or clay, but the word I was looking for was dirt. The second word down is the metal part of a belt. Oops, I just gave away the answer. The answer is buckle. So that one should have been pretty easy. The study of history and prehistory through excavation of artifacts. This one's a little harder. So think about it for a second. And the answer should have been archaeology. The next word down is an easier one too. The crescent-shaped metal parts that go on a horse's hooves. That answer should have been horseshoe. Finally, the last word down is a tool used to measure short lengths. So short lengths would be like this. What would you use to measure something like this? For me, I know the answer is ruler. So that was the answer to number 9 down. All right, starting with the across words. Number 4 across, the kind of gun that would shoot a musket ball. So this one was a little easier too, because it actually says it right in the question. The type of gun that would shoot a musket ball is a musket. Number 5 across, a special piece of history or prehistory that tells a story. So this one's a lot harder, especially if you don't know anything about archaeology or if you're just starting out. So the answer to that one is actually artifact. And an artifact is something that we find as archaeologists to tell a story about maybe what happened in history or prehistory. Number 6 across, a tool that detects underlying metal in the ground. What did you guys get for that one? I know this one for me was a little tricky, but it was easy once I figured it out. For this one I got metal detector. The next one's a little harder too. America's fight for independence from British rule. If you know anything about the history of the United States, you might know that the answer is the Revolutionary War. But don't be worried if you didn't get it. That one was difficult. And finally, number 10 across, a tool used to dig holes. This one should have been pretty easy. I feel like most of you have probably dug a hole by now. The answer is shovel. Now, let's move on to a day in the life of an archaeologist. So, I want you guys to take a second to sort of brainstorm, what do you think an archaeologist should wear to work? So, what do you think of when you think of the word archaeologist? What do you think of them wearing? I know for something like a doctor, I think of a lab coat or glasses. or a button-up shirt to show that they're professional. So take that and apply it to what you would think of an archaeologist. I know before I got into archaeology and started learning, I always thought of Indiana Jones. Sadly, that's not a great description of what archaeologists actually wear to work. So what do you think an archaeologist should wear to work? Alright, I gave you a few seconds. Let's look at what an archaeologist actually wears to work. Alright, here's what archaeologists wear to work. So right there you see bright colors. So why is this important? We wear bright colors so if we're working by the road or especially during hunting season, we don't want any accidental injuries. We don't want anyone to accidentally get shot by a hunter or hit by a car. We just do this to make sure that we're extra safe. So, pants with lots of pockets. I don't know if you guys can actually see my pants, but I have quite a few pockets. They almost look like army pants, actually. And why is that important? Because archaeologists have to carry lots of gear in the work and need a convenient place to store it all, just so that way we're not digging through our bags all the time and wasting time out in the field. So the next one is hiking boots. We never know when it could start raining or be muddy out in the field, so it's important to wear something sturdier than sneakers and especially no open-toed shoes, no flip-flops, nothing like that. We don't want our feet to get hurt or anything like that, and especially if it's muddy, we don't want to deal with that. So, hats. So as you can see, I have on a bright orange hat. A lot of people choose to wear their hat forward facing to keep the sun out of their eyes, but I actually wear mine backwards to keep the sun off my neck. Because I'm pretty pale, I sunburn pretty easily. So finally, we have backpacks to carry all our gear. So all this talk about gear, you're probably wondering what kind of gear an archaeologist even carries. So we'll move into that. What kind of gear does an archaeologist carry? So for this project, when we were at George Rogers Clark Park, we carried shovels. Now, shovels are for when we have to dig holes in the metal to find something. This is when the metal detector would go off and alert us that something is underground. We would take the shovel and dig a hole. Measuring tapes for stratigraphy. Stratigraphy is kind of a big word, and I'll explain more about that in the next slide. Clipboards for notes. We need clipboards for all the notes and forms to fill out when we find artifacts. That way we can keep track of them so nothing gets lost in transit. Sunscreen and bug spray. This is super important. This one's important especially for me because I'm very pale and I burn extremely easily. The last thing you want while you're out having fun in the field with your friends is to have a nasty sunburn or be covered in bug bites because we all know that just sucks. We don't want that. We don't want to be dealing with that. It just puts a damper on things. So we always make sure to apply sunscreen and bug spray multiple times a day so that we don't get bogged down by those kinds of things. So the next one is orange flags, like this one here. We use orange flags because we like to mark the holes and the places in the ground where we need to dig. So if the metal detector like this one here, starts beeping and going off, we know that there's a piece of metal under the ground. So we use those orange flags to poke in the ground and so we know that's where we need to dig. So we have tons of these flags and they go all over the field. And then we start to dig everything up. We use smaller handheld metal detectors to help us sift through the dirt and find things more easily. The next thing we have is artifact bags. Artifact bags are especially important because when we find an artifact in one of the holes we're digging, we need a place to put it. We need a place to put it where it won't get dirty or it won't get damaged. So we put one of those in like a Ziploc bag and we write our other notes on it so that it doesn't get lost. So we know exactly what it is. And we put those in our backpacks until the end of the day when our supervisor collects them all. So the next thing we have is, before you would like leave that spot in the ground, you would use something like this. This crazy looking thing is called a tremble. Trembles are used to take GPS points using the satellites in the sky. We take the GPS points on all the spots we dig so that we can make maps of those places later on. Maps just help us to visualize some of the points that we're plotting. Finally, we have lots of water. I know when I go into the field, I prefer to bring a big old water bottle like this one. And I do that because we only get to pack our water once a day in the morning, and we have to make that water last all day. So I always choose to use a bigger water bottle so that I don't have to keep refilling smaller ones like this one. So, what was that stratigraphy I was talking about earlier? Stratigraphy is a pretty big word, but it actually means something pretty simple. Stratigraphy are all the layers in the ground. So, if you've ever dug a hole before, you probably noticed that the top few layers were they were easy to break up. They were pretty, what is the word? They were pretty loose. But if you keep digging a hole, then you'll probably get to the second layer where it's more muddy and everything is more stuck together, a little more almost like clay. So those are two strata. The first strata is the one where the soil is loose and easy to break up. The second strata is the mud. And it's pretty easy to visualize, actually. I like to think about it like the layers of a cake. So when you're making a cake, the first layer you lay down is going to be your oldest layer. And you're going to put the frosting in between, and then you put the second layer, the frosting between, and then this third layer, and the fourth layer, and so on. So the first layer you put down will be the oldest layer, which will be on the very bottom. And the last layer you put on will be the newest layer, which will be on the very top. So if you think about it, the further you dig down, the older things are getting. So if you wanted to find something like a dinosaur or a mammoth, you'd have to dig really deep into the earth. But if you wanted to find your dog's bone from the other day, you wouldn't have to dig very far. So what should have been included in your packet as well is a stratigraphy worksheet. It should be a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with some extras, and it should be able to explain stratigraphy to you in a really easy and pretty fun way. So if you want to go ahead and do that activity, get one of your parents, or if you're old enough to do it alone, you can do that. I would suggest parental guidance though. So go ahead and do that worksheet, and then I'll be back for the next video. Thank you guys. Bye.